So welcome everyone to the Unearthing Greater Healing Consciousness within the Black Lives Matter movement. This is the final event that we have for the Department of Learning and Teaching Black Lives Matter Social Justice and Advocacy Series. And I just want to say thank you for taking your Friday evening or afternoon to really share and do this work with us today. We have a full schedule. We were just talking about that. We're going to go through the solidarity statement, talk about unearthing biases. Tomay is going to share some poetry with us and run us through an activity that she has created. Then we'll get into our discussion groups, talk about some healing resources, and then the closing remarks and next steps.
So as in all of these events, we are committed to fulfilling what we've stated, what we've captured in our solidarity statement. And for this session, our focus is on healing. And it's healing through restorative justice, through meaningful and critical conversations, and through relationship building. So I'm just going to read the bottom portion, which says, let us restore humanity through action and social activism. We need to rise together to stand for equity, to learn about our combined and individual histories, and to actively listen to each other for the betterment of humankind.
Thank you.
So again, we just want to thank everybody for taking the time and the energy to be here.
Hair is fabulous.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We just wanted to, again, thank everybody for coming and showing up as yourselves and joining us in this time together, this online space. And before we jump into this unearthing our biases activity, want to make sure that everyone feels grounded in this space. So I just want to offer, if you would like to join me in taking 3 collective breaths together. So just feeling your feet if on the ground, or maybe if you're sitting, just feeling wherever you're sitting, and the stability that the earth is offering us. And when you're ready, go ahead and take a deep, long breath in through the nose. And then slowly let it out. Again, take a deep breath in. Long breath out. And last time, breathing in. And when you're ready, exhaling all the way out. So we have a clip, and it's going to just start us off on this journey to kind of frame our activities and what we'll be sharing and doing with each other today. So during this video, we invite you to watch it and listen and notice what you're seeing. Notice what's coming up for you in different parts of this short video clip. And throughout it, being reflexive and asking, well, what can we learn from this as we share this viewing experience together?
Okay. Can you hear it?
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego. We speak English there.
Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean before that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, like, well, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean. But I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
Shastina. There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place near my apartment. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
No, I'm just American.
Really? You're Native American?
No, just regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well. Hello, Governor! What's all this then? Drop the ball to you. It's your 14, double, toil and trouble. Mongo Camp, big red, Jack the Ripper, bloody hell! Pippin, cheerio! I think your people's fish and chips are amazing.
You're weird.
Really? Weird? Must be a Korean thing.
Thank you. There's a rage that lives inside the wrong. It screeches a call for me to join along. Its piercing sound, like a clashing melody, is an angry tune that helps me to see. The call isn't in a song, it's a wailing pain. The reflection seen is subconsciously stained. My inability to harmonize leaves me displaced. Key players too irate to hear, I stand in a space, isolated, focused, flowing in the minor of me, hidden in plain sight, othered, searching for we. Conflicted tongue like a two-edged sword, me too, Black Lives Matter, resilient in rage. Is there a path forward? The act of shame, pain began with her, mostly he. I'd be justified to not care and fight unhealed, but I am not she. This is a poem that I wrote, and it was at the intersection of the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a space where I felt like I couldn't identify with either group. I couldn't identify with the way we were moving with the Me Too movement because it seemed like it was only helping a select few that were at the top of the chain, the socioeconomic chain. It seemed like it was leaving out the voices that are often marginalized, voices of those on the ground, voices of the blue collar workers. And so out of this poem, and it's untitled because it's ever evolving, because as we see in the space we're in today, it still applies, although it was written a few years ago. And with that, what came out of it was this activity that we are going to go into. And it's a humanity tree, but it's really for us to unearth our greater healing consciousness. And if we can move into that slide, I just want to explain to you why we're doing this. Because the same way I was able to sit with the pain that I felt and sit with the pain that I witnessed, right? I still had to reconcile within myself that I can do something different. I didn't have to just go from being a warrior destroyer, wanting to hurt everything because I was hurt. I understood that I can be a warrior healer. And so that's the path and the walk that I committed to. So with this activity that we're going to do, we're going to drop the link in the chat. And it's a template to really help you unearth your bias, right? We all have them. But it's about sitting with the video we just watched, listening to the poem I just read, and really understanding to put at the top of it, what are our biases, our perceptions, beliefs, or myths that we hold towards Black Lives Matter, towards Asian American, Pacific Islanders, towards Latinx and Indigenous identities. Like really to sit with that. What do we think? How are we responding? What comes up for us when we hear yet another story on the news? And once we get that in place on the top, then we go to the bottom and get to the root of the thing, right? Because we want to uproot so we can unearth, so we can get healing. And really begin to think about those experiences. What were the narratives that you were taught, right? What were the lessons that you learned? And what's the historical context, right? That's influencing your beliefs, your biases, perceptions, and myths towards communities that are marginalized. This is how we can begin to grow. James Baldwin said that until we face, nothing that we face can be changed unless we face it, right? But everything that we face doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change. But the beauty of it is that we're engaging in it, that we're actually doing this activity. So we're going to take about 15 minutes, and you can turn your screen off and really work on this worksheet. And then we're going to come back and we'll give you directions from there. Thank you.
Emma?
Yes, so as we move into the dialogue space as a follow-up of this activity, we just want to situate ourselves within these norms to create a brave space for dialogue. And they include listening with intentionality and being okay with awkward silences, speaking your truth and sharing authentically by using I statements, respecting confidentiality, experiencing and leaning into discomfort, being mindful of time so everyone can have an opportunity to share, recognizing that this is unfinished work, and recognizing your own communication style, and examining your own assumptions and perceptions. And so as we move into the discussion portion, some ideas for discussion might include just, really open-ended questions about what came up for you in terms of the bias video that we watched, in terms of the poem Tomay read, and the experience of engaging with the greater consciousness tree. And just it could be as simple as just speaking our truth. So it's really open-ended. These are just recommendations for engaging in dialogue about these topics.
Two things. Thank you all for, being here today and having this discussion. We actually had a landing room, the main room discussion for a few people. So it was actually really nice. But I also wanted to give some acknowledgement to Tomay for creating this activity and Zulema for creating the amazing graphic, and that we have just such wonderful talent, and we've been able to really kind of come together and create not only this space, but this way of framing things that is just so impressive. And so thank you, ladies, for putting that together. I now want us to, we had 4 groups, and so we can start with the main room group. If we could just kind of share a little bit about what your discussion or process or things that came up were. So Michelle was going to share for us.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So in our group, I'm just going to kind of share some little highlights. Brian from our group is coming from Canada, and I love the whole thing. We were talking about just kind of the conversations that are going on, but also talking about how we grew up and how that has really influenced our thinking. But even now, in the positions that we have, thinking about how it has pushed us into some form of advocacy. One of the things that Brian was talking about is this us, other, and them. And just now the conversations that him and his group are having about the Indigenous people and other people of color in Canada, and those conversations about who basically, Brian, I'm kind of putting this in my own words, but who are we bringing at the table and moving beyond our conversations? Dr. Jez talked about, pulling yourself up from the bootstraps. I've worked so hard, but this is also using what we might seem as kind of a negative, or, I've worked hard, so I should do this, but it pushes us once again into advocacy, into, not being complacent, being able to help move others. I talked about how your history can kind of move you into a direction of learning about yourself, and how it also pushes you into ways of uncomfortability that helps you also go into an advocacy. And then Jasmine brought us home to, sometimes we have to think about what comfortability and what welcoming means to everyone, right? Is that really inclusive? And what do we mean by that term? So I hope I kind of summed up. And if anyone in our group would like to add any more to it.
I think you did a beautiful job. Zulema and Joseph, does your group want someone from your group?
Zulema, you want to speak to that? Or?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're so eloquent and you speak so well.
I mean, we actually had really rich conversations around identities, our identities, perceptions of others' identities, how we construct those identities. We went all the way to the roots in some of those cases. We leaned into the discomfort so that we could check off that part of our norms. We definitely did go there, and we were definitely being brave, without oversharing too much of the specifics, because again, that was also part of the norms. But I do want to say that our conversation was, I think we all learned from each other. That was definitely, we all took something, major learnings away from every piece of sharing that was done was beneficial for our growth and for the group. And I think we all really appreciated having that space. So.
Thank you. And Jennifer, someone from your group?
So we started at the branches. We watched the video, the 2-minute video again, and just talked about our perceptions and different biases we saw and what came up, and went down to the roots. And always goes back to family and our experiences, and realizing that we can see some of our family members shifting in ways we've never ever seen them shift before, which is exciting. But at the same time, we can't do that process for them. It is our own personal experience, their own personal responsibility to do the work, our responsibility to do our work and keep moving that in a way like this, mosaic of people just trying to do the work. We're moving forward together, but we again can't do the work for each other. We have to do it for ourselves. If anyone in my group wants to jump in and anything else that came up.
It's a great message. Tomay, does someone from your group want to share?
Was this gesture to me, Tomay? I felt it through Zoom. Hi, everyone. How are you? My name is Lindsay. It's good to see so many of your faces. I'm like smiling. Since March, I am appreciative of everyone in my group. Tomay modeled great vulnerability and how the branches were tied to the root in her own personal narrative. And I think that really warmed up our unique small community of 4 with Susan and with Meredith to lean into personal narrative. and to share real life examples of both the branches connected to the roots. Taking from Tomay's excellent modeling, I chose to also live in a personal narrative and model messiness, and that everyone had really beautiful examples that were really concrete. And I got beautifully lost, I would say, in self-reflection and inconclusive thoughts, and leaving space for further reflection and all of the range of emotions and thoughts and ponderances and provocations for thought that will probably leave me outside of when this Zoom is closed by the host. And I think overall, that's probably the goal of an exercise like this, right? To allow us for continued reflection. And so for me, the examples were really good to hear, but also thinking about the larger systems of socialization for me, and why we know what we know and learn what we learn and hold what we hold was also really helpful. So in the spirit of messiness, I'm going to stop sharing on an ellipses, ... And if anyone else wants to pick it up and finish that sentence, by all means, go ahead. But if not, like, we could leave it there too. It was a great, thoughtful reflection. And I would say I'm like 10% into probably where the work should have led me for the goals of this evening. And that, I'll leave the sentence unended. How about that? Yeah.
Well, I think that was fantastic, because I do think that actually models the messiness of this work, and the fact that we continue to grow and learn and maybe change our perspectives and love and forgive and build community and listen and grow. So thank you, Lindsay. I thought it was beautiful. Anyone else want to share anything that kind of came up for them? Okay, well then we will continue with our program. Jennifer?
Yeah, so we sent some resources for healing. If you enjoyed the breathing, if you were able to join us. If not, it's okay, because we have some resources for you to ground you, starting with the breathing and some other tools, especially, grounding is such an important piece of healing, and, continuing our work as social justice warriors. We always need to put in that time for ourselves, for self-care and such. So there's a link to a free 30-day mindfulness course. The nice thing is you can jump around. You don't have to go in sequence. And we all signed up for it, the presenters and I, so we invite you to join us. And Rhonda McGee, she's also one of the teachers on there. And she just came out with a book about racial healing and justice. I believe is she an attorney? But she's really good stuff. So we invite you to check that out.
Joseph, do you want to?
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to share just a portion of this. We recommend that if you get a chance to go back and to watch in its entirety. We wanted to share Dr. Jenee Johnson's work and a video. She's a program innovation leader of mindfulness, trauma, and racial healing. And this is a short video clip that really focuses on the root of racism. We were talking about the tree and the roots so she's asking us to examine the root through her very powerful speech. And just to give you an idea, this is called the Sankofa, Reclaiming Humanity, Joy, and Well-Being for People of African Ancestry. And just to give you a quick education about Sankofa, for those that may not be familiar with that word, Sankofa is an African word from the Akan tribe in Ghana. Akan tribe in Ghana. And the little transition of the word and the symbol is it is not taboo to fetch what is at risk of being left behind. So when you think about that, that is really, really heavy, So san, the very first part means return, ko means go, and fa, look, seek, and take. And with that, Dr. Jez, if you can play us a clip, let's examine this and let her help us discover the roots. Thank you.
And Black people, I'm talking to you now. As we move through this experience called racism, we move through this prism called Sankofa, which is about go back and get it, reconnect and reclaim what is yours, and move through that prism to reclaim your humanity, joy, love, gratitude. Because without it, what we have is hopelessness, perceived powerlessness, anger, and depression. Scholar activist Amber McZeel said, "We have never shied away from the task of healing ourselves, nor have we lacked the tools and the wisdom. It's time to stop carrying the burden that's not ours to carry and to move more fully into our joy." And it's inside of joy, it's inside of the elated and elevated emotion. That's where our life is, that's where our health is, that's where the answers are. The Rwandan prescription for depression is sun, drum, dance, community. Yes, yes? Mm-hmm. When after the genocide, when white psychologists and mental health workers came to Rwanda and wanted to take people into these quiet little rooms and have them just tell their stories, they said, we had to kick some of them out because we were being re-traumatized. Our answer is sun, drum, dance, community. And inside of that, I have founded the Right Within experience. You know who sang that, right? How you gonna win when you ain't right within? How you gonna win when you ain't right within? Yes? Yeah, move your body. I know. It's coming back. It's coming back. Oh my God, my time is running out, but I'm gonna tell you what I have to tell you. The Right Within experience is founded to reclaim humanity, joy, and well-being for people of African ancestry through mindful practice. It is founded on the principle of Sankofa. Go back and fetch it. Reclaim ancestral connection and reconnection to learn the past to build the future. The Right Within experience reclaims humanity, joy, well-being, and freedom, stolen and eroded from the experiences of racism. We are in the stages of curating and preparing to offer an interactive meditation, movement, and music program to organizations on the front line of social justice so that they can transform their environments and offer a better gift to the community. How are you going to win when you ain't right? We're not. So many scholars are acknowledging that mindfulness is a path to not only personal transformation and healing, but a path to community transformation and healing. Meditation is about creating temporal, mental, emotional, spiritual space for reconnection in the service of truth, healing, resilience, and transformation. And the other thing that we're going to do, y'all, is we're going to write this practice meditation and mindfulness in its proper lineage. And its lineage is African. It's African. 300,000 years ago, the only people on earth were Africans. 60,000 years ago, Africans populated East Asia. 40,000 years ago, Africans populated West Asia. 6,000 years ago, civilization began at the Nile Valley. African roots of mindfulness. In the Egyptian mystery schools, a lot of the transmission was oral and not written down. So listen, the work ahead of us is truly the work of Sankofa for all African people. I guess that would mean you too. Since that's where we all started, yes. Those of us with most recent history from the continent and those of us who left a long time ago. May we all be fully human. May we be happy, and may we be healthy, and may we have joy, and may we rise up and have courage. 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 You sit to rise. You sit to rise. Bring up the music. You sit to rise. You sit to rise. You sit to rise.
I love that song, so it's hard for me to stop it, but we do want to make sure that we go forward with our program. And next, we are lucky to have Dr. James Fabionar with us tonight, and he's going to give the closing remarks. And we are so lucky because Dr. Fabionar has actually been doing so many speaking engagements and doing such important work for the AAIP community or PI community, and we just really honor his voice, his experience, and his time with us tonight. So, James.
Well, thank you so much. And it is wonderful to be in this space. Many familiar faces, folks I see in research settings, folks I see in class settings, folks I see in faculty meeting settings. And I just want to say that I am really grateful to be here. And when Dr. Jez asked me to consider coming today, I to be really honest, and she knows this, we got a whole text conversation about this. I originally said, I'm really exhausted. And is there anybody else who you might be able to tap? And if not, I'd be happy. I'll be there. And as I sat with, and she so graciously honored that and recognized that, like I've just, it's been a long time for all of us, not only in a pandemic, but with, the racial reckoning that's happening, the 4+ years in particular, where every headline was something that was, beyond a microaggression. It's just something that landed in painful ways. And then this last month or so, with the number of kind of places I've been called to serve around issues of race, to say nothing of, our own institutional context, and being asked to, as Dr. Jez knows, hey, can you write a solidarity statement? Can you write an anti-racism statement? Can you? And so I'm really grateful to be here when I sat with things for a bit and was able to kind of think about the theme of healing, to be able to come to a place where I could see this as a space where my current state actually was really relevant. And so there are a few things, because, I've been exhausted. I have struggled to say no, and I'm still not very good at it. And it is something that I love. And I see Joseph, you just laughing at me. I know you are. It is something that I love about myself, and it's something that I hate about myself, because, you know, and many people in this space can recognize what that's like to want to be in service, to want to be in solidarity, to want to be in community, to want to, and sometimes in performative ways when we get really tired. It's like, is my heart really there? And so my goal has always been to try to think about, is my heart really there? So my heart is here, and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to listen to the stories. One of the things that I wanted to kind of share, just kind of in closing, is that I'm a big fan, and many of you who are my students have heard this probably ad nauseum. I'm a big fan of the framing of social justice work through the lens of healing. And I wanted to share a couple of things about that. I don't want to go too deep into theory and things of that nature, but I do want to share kind of a little bit about why I think that's the case by kind of sharing 3 different kinds of social justice projects that we tend to find ourselves involved with. And why I think healing really fits with one of these types of projects in ways that I think is a really good symbol or signifier. And so the first of these projects is, and we're all familiar with these, are kind of projects, social justice projects that are really about material conditions. And the ways that, and we know the language of this, it's usually very kind of classical Marxist, right? Marxian thought, which is who controls materials and resources, and how have they structured the social world to maintain control over those resources by the ways we organize people, organize systems and institutions, and all that stuff. We're really familiar with those. And we, of course, know that this is a really important way that we critique issues of inequity, is to say who has material wealth, who has control. And at the same time, we also know that we've now had generations of folks who will say, you know, those kinds of projects are meaningful, but they're also limited because, you know, they also oftentimes conceptualize the oppressed as victims without recognizing them as agential beings, as people who have agency, right? And so on the one hand, we want to kind of hold that kind of project. It's important at times, but it's limited. A second kind of project is, you know, our projects about ideology and oppression, right? And those projects, and we're very squarely, and a lot of what I think we did today in storytelling and unearthing biases really fit a lot of this kind of project, which is these projects are often focused on power and discourse, in particular on the deconstructing master narratives and the way we maintain material conditions of oppression, right, through counter narratives. In ethnic studies, and you know, this is huge, right? Chicano studies, right? Testimonials as a research approach is just skyrocketed in the number of folks who are saying, yes, this is a valid way, formed on kind of a Chicano, Chicanx kind of epistemology, and even reaching back to indigenous roots in many respects around storytelling and kind of oral histories, right? And those are really, really important because those narratives help us to kind of speak back and to resist. They help us to kind of consolidate our identities and say, I'm not necessarily the dominant group here, and that's okay. But a critique of that oftentimes is stories don't always translate into material change, right? And we see that with so much of what's going on around the Black Lives Matter movement, how the narratives and the ways that narratives around, for instance, unfunding the police suddenly gets co-opted in ways where the story then becomes really, really truncated in ways that don't give context and understanding to why people in Black and Brown communities, low-income communities, are saying this history of policing in the ways that we conceptualize or don't conceptualize what is public safety and well-being, and who is the public, and whose safety really matters, right? We can see how the discourse and counter-narratives sometimes can get co-opted in ways that can be limited and don't necessarily translate into systemic or material kinds of changes. But what I really like about this theme that's introduced today around healing is the idea that we're now thinking about projects in social justice through an embodied perspective, right? With the first two, the material, the ideological, I can be a cisgendered straight white guy who's wealthy, and I can do really important analysis around the material conditions and around counter storytelling. And I can rise up to positions of power in a capitalist society. But I can still be completely separate from the experiences of those people whose reality is oppression. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. When I have people come to me and tell me about the API community or my experience as a Filipino or as a queer person, and they don't have any actual recognition or appreciation for the experience, what it's like to be in the body of somebody of these identities and somebody whose ancestry makes up my unique experience. That's a problem. So I really appreciate the framing of healing in spaces like this, right? And so the projects, this is the third type of project, is looking at kind of projects that try to address how oppression is embodied, right? These projects are often focused on the experience of oppression and how oppressive social relations manifest in the body. For instance, in how we perform or adorn masculinity or whiteness, right? Heteronormativity, right? In ways that construct our identities in ways where we become complicit with oppression, right? And I also appreciate these are the projects that go to the heart, and I think about a lot of what was just shown in that video around how our identities are constructed in relationship to trauma and emotions, right? The language of macroaggressions or microaggressions, excuse me. That is really about how the structural conditions and the dominant narratives and ideologies, how they land. What do they feel like? The years I spent in the closet as a queer person of color, oh my goodness, the kind of trauma. Subtle and unformed, and not subtle and not subtle, right? And so when I think about Black and brown bodies and the history of oppression within the context of enslavement, within the context of displacement, within the context of labor exploration, these are marked on our bodies, in our bodies. And they transcend generations. They are encoded, not only in our structures, but in our bodies and in our beings. And so it is true. How can you win if you're not right within? If you ain't right within, okay? It is, and it's lovely. Thank you for playing that video. It's such a theme right there. It really helps me to kind of speak to some or illustrate some of what I'm saying. And of course, I'm a big Lauryn Hill fan because that's when I'm dating myself now, but that was when I was in college. So that was it. But one of the things that gives me hope in our field in education and in applied fields more broadly is that you are seeing scholar activists recognize and legitimize this discourse or projects around embodied responses to oppression, right? We don't have to look far to see that healing, joy, resilience, perseverance, persistence, thriving, and so on, that to see the groundswell of support for restorative practices so that we're giving context to behavior, conflict, and pain instead of just putting it aside, setting it out of our classrooms, putting them in prison. And we're seeking to take care of one another, to humanize. So there are two things that I want to kind of leave when I come into spaces that are really about this notion of healing in social justice work. A couple of things that I listen really carefully because it tells me a little bit about the operating definition and how people are thinking about healing. And so I wanted to kind of leave you with a couple different views that I tend to hear in these spaces. And so I'll pose a question at the end of this. And so one is the idea of healing as a metaphor, right? And I tend to think about this the way I thought about healing as a child. It's skin my knee, right? And to me, healing meant, okay, I could take the Band-Aid off and the scar was no longer there for me to pick. And I'm as good as new. I'm the way I was before I got hurt, right? And I tend to go into some spaces around healing, and I tend to hear some very surface kinds of levels of, of thinking about what healing is. But as you get older, you realize that when you hurt yourself, and just because the wound is not fresh, we're no longer the same person. When we've healed, no longer is the wound no longer in pain or inflamed, and you're operating. But ideally, you've learned your lesson so that you don't get hurt again, right? And if you've learned your lesson so that you don't get hurt again, guess what? That's not a metaphor for healing like a child thinks about healing. I'm as good as I was. I'm starting over. That is healing as a euphemism for radical change. And so what I want to encourage us to do, as you come in and out of these spaces where you find different kinds of projects, and especially in those academic and social justice oriented spaces, to ask ourselves, is this a notion of healing about radical change, about learning from our mistakes, about not getting hurt anymore? Or is this a concept of healing that is about just putting a Band-Aid on something and pretending like things are okay? So thank you for letting me close up today. I really appreciate it. Grateful to share this space with all you, and thank you for allowing me to bring my heart into this space.
Thank you so much, James. You are absolutely amazing. So I'm glad you're here. Just a last little activity that we'd like you to do is just in the chat, please write a note about what the space has given you over the past year, today, all of that. And I'm also putting in the chat a link to this form. This was our closing event for this year, but there's next year's work to do too. And so we've created a form that will give us your email address. And please feel free to share this with anyone who you think might be interested. But we just, what did you like about the series? What could we improve? Any suggestions for topics you'd like to see? Would you like to be part of the planning team? What gifts, talents, or ideas? I mean, we have people like Zulema who has made amazing flyers and facilitators, and Jennifer actually has put together a resource list on the website. So whatever your talent is, we would love to hear about it. It can be small, it can be large. We would just love for you to be part of this. And then anything else that we should know. And then also there is a call for a conference. So we recently presented at the American Educational Research Association conference about the work that we did last summer. And so if someone's interested, or if you know anyone who's interested in putting together a proposal, it is due on the 26th, which is coming up pretty quickly here. So, but if you'd like to put together a proposal, then please reach out to me. And then once again, if we could do our gratitude in the chat, which I saw them coming in. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's here, for your time, for your energy, for your love, for your community. And we look forward to working with you and seeing you at future events.
Thank you, everyone. Such a great session again.
It's been a blessing. Thank you.
Yes, awesome.